Welcome back to the Weber Kettle series brought to you by Fogo Charcoal here on Chuds BBQ, everybody. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today we're cooking up the king of all steaks. That's right, folks, we're cooking up some Wagyu A5 Guga style. Coming up! These are some Wagyu A5 New York strips. And believe it or not, I got these at Costco. I was roaming through the aisles of Costco the other day, and in the freezer section, they had a big pile of these Wagyu A5 New York strips, and they look pretty damn good. So I had to know, is Costco Wagyu any good? Today, we're gonna find out. Look at that beautiful steak. Pretty thick too. And it's already starting to melt in my hands. And all that marbling is why these steaks are so expensive and why they're so sought after. They really are a delicacy because there's only so much of this stuff you can eat. But it's not just the amount of fat that makes these steaks so special. It's also the type of fat. It's got a much lower melting point and a totally different mouthfeel than your typical beef fat. Something to do with trans fats or something like that. You're gonna have to talk to someone who knows a little bit more about science than me if you want to figure that out.
Hey Brad, so excited that you're cooking Wagyu. It is really special, and it's special for a number of different reasons. The first is the amount of marbling that's present in Wagyu. And the reason that it's present there is because it used to be used as a draft breed. So they used to use them for hard labor. For animals, they can store kind of quick access energy in the form of glycogen. It's a carbohydrate that's present in muscle tissue. But for sustained effort, you're gonna have to use something besides just that carbohydrate. And so these cattle adapted to store a bunch of energy in the form of fat. So now that we use them to eat, it's delicious, it's packed full of fat. Now, it's not fat that's equivalent to fat you would find in other breeds of cattle. It's special because the composition of that fat is different than what you would find in most other cattle breeds. So in most cattle breeds, the fat is predominantly saturated fat, whereas in Wagyu, there's a lot of unsaturated fat. So to illustrate what's going on and to kind of harken back to my school teacher days, I kind of drew a diagram. This is a representation of what a typical fat looks like. Here we have three kind of straight chains and they stack really well. They're usually a solid at room temperature. Whereas if they're unsaturated, like this fatty acid, it has a weird shape, it doesn't stack very well, and it liquefies at a lower temperature than saturated fats do. So all of that leads to Wagyu being super succulent, super juicy, super delicious, and I only wish that I could be there to try it with you.
Thank you, Jeremy. This stuff really is like beef butter. Very tasty stuff. Highly recommend doing it at least once in your life. So this is Wagyu, which means it's Japanese cattle. And the story goes, back in the 90s, when Japan started allowing imports of foreign beef into Japan, they were concerned about losing their beef market because other countries can produce a lot more beef at a lot cheaper price. So instead of trying to compete with price, they decided to up the quality of their beef, getting this super marbled, massive amounts of intramuscular fat that A5 is known for. And to do that, they basically started raising more steers and heifers, and they started grain feeding them a lot more, which means they were eating a lot of corn and other grains as opposed to just grass or straw, which is why they're so fatty. And if you've never cooked one of these before, it is a pretty daunting task. At Costco, these sell for $99 a pound, which is actually pretty cheap in the world of Wagyu A5. So this is about $100 worth of steak right here. And I gotta say, I'm a little bit nervous because I do not want to overcook this thing or ruin it in any way, because that is a lot of money and it's a cut that deserves respect. So I think I need to get some advice from someone who knows his way around some Wagyu beef.
What's up, Brad? You are about to cook one of the best steaks in the world. Should you be nervous? You better believe it, because the first time I cooked it on a kettle, I was definitely nervous. I've cooked quite a few Wagyus, as you know, but the two favorite ways to cook it for me, at least on the Weber kettle, would be to one, direct grilling it, and the next one, to do it on a pan. And here's how to do them. The first method is the direct grilling. Get the grill nice and hot, but not too hot. You gotta remember, as soon as you put it in, it's gonna flame up like there's no tomorrow, especially when that fat is rendering. So one of the most important things is to have a direct heat and indirect heat. And you better move that steak like there's no tomorrow. If you don't, it is gonna burn, and that's the last thing you want. Flip it and move it away from the heat as many times as necessary to get that nice golden brown crust. Don't let it get black. That's a big deal. We want it golden brown, not black. That is how I would do the very first one. Now the second one, on the other hand, is going to be a little bit different. Highly recommend using a cast iron pan for it and searing it with some butter, thyme, and garlic. It's going to give you an incredible flavor. Is it going to be rich? You better believe it, because not only are you having an incredibly fatty steak, but you're also going to be basting it with butter. As you know, when you're searing a steak, you get that golden brown butter. It bastes the steak and it produces an amazing flavor on top of it. So just imagine thyme, garlic, and butter on a Wagyu steak. Man, you are about to be in heaven. That is how I would cook both steaks. With all that being said, I hope it turns out good, and I'll tell you one thing, I wish I was there.
Thanks, Guga. Wish you were here as well, but don't worry, we'll link up soon enough. But you heard the man, and he's probably cooked more Wagyu A5 than anyone on this planet. So we're gonna take his advice and do one in a pan with some butter, thyme, and garlic. The other one we're gonna sear right over the coals. But first, we need to get these seasoned up. For seasoning, we're gonna keep it real simple today with just some good old kosher salt, both sides, folks, as well as some black pepper. And for this one, which we're gonna be doing over the direct coals, we're gonna hit it with a little bit of garlic powder. We are cooking Guga style after all. But this one, we're gonna keep just salt and pepper because we're gonna have plenty of garlic and butter and thyme in the pan. So into the fridge those steaks go for the next little bit to firm up and allow that salt to penetrate a little bit, maybe an hour or so. And then all we need to do is fire up the grill, cook them to perfection, and slice on in. So let's do it. All right, y'all, and there we have it. Some beautifully cooked Japanese Wagyu A5 strip loins off the Weber kettle. This is the one that was grilled directly over the charcoal, looking beautiful. After carryover, it registered right around 125 degrees. So a nice rare, low mid rare. And this one over here, which was the fattier of the two, was the pan seared. Beautiful golden brown crust on there. This one's more medium rare. This one was around 130, 135 coming off the pit. But oh my God, it smells heavenly out here. So without further ado, I think it's time to dive on in. I gotta start with the classic grilled steak just because that's more what I'm used to. Oh my God. Oh my God. Holy hell. That is unbelievably juicy. The minute it hits your mouth, it just starts melting. Oh my God. The amount of flavor in that one bite is just insane. You got that charcoal flavor, salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic in there. It's just like the best grilled steak you've ever had in your life, but it's just unbelievably juicy. It's kind of like a tallow wrapped brisket where it's just glistening in every direction, except this is great because all that fat is within the meat fibers. So good. Oh my God, that's amazing. Very fatty, very marbled, just so flavorful. This may have ruined all other steaks for the rest of my life. Wow. It is heavy though, right off the bat. Like normally a steak this size I could put down for a dinner, but 2 bites in, this is already starting to weigh me down a little bit. Let's try this one over here. This is the old pan seared. I haven't done a good garlic, thyme, butter pan seared steak in a long time. Very excited about it. Oh my God, that is fantastic. Again, this was the fattier of the 2 steaks, and you can see just how much fat is still in there. Again, that fat eats totally differently than a regular steak. Normally if there's a big fat cap on a steak, it's kind of chewy and unrendered, not very pleasant, still very flavorful. But this is, it just melts. Unbelievable. Wow. This is luxurious, to say the least. It's really nice with the thyme and garlic notes on there. I do miss the fire taste a little bit. Although I gotta admit, the crust on the pan-seared one was a lot prettier than the one from the charcoal. This one's a little darker, you know, as to be expected. Those flare-ups definitely are something to look out for. Where this one was that beautiful golden brown that Guga was talking about. Oh, love it. But with that color comes flavor. But this has the added benefit of that garlic and that Irish butter in there. Truly a decadent bite. Good Lord. I see why Guga's devoted his life to this cut. That is an experience, to say the least. Again, I know this is crazy expensive, but it's worth experiencing if you are a carnivore like myself. So good. You saw I had no oil in that pan when I threw this one in. And by the end, it just rendered out so much. It was deep frying in its own juices. Unbelievable, folks. I wish you were here to eat this with me. I had some friends coming over, but they had previous engagements. And Brooke was supposed to be out here, but she's sleeping right now, watching My 600-Pound Life, which after this meal, I will probably be on that show. Worth it! Oh. It's just so good. It's amazing how it's all intramuscular fat, because usually with a fatty cut, like a fat cap on tri-tip or picanha or something like that, it's a big bite of fat on top of a big bite of meat. So it kind of gets mixed up in your mouth. Sometimes you're gonna end up with a big chunk of fat, but because it's all intramuscular like this, it's like fatty brisket where each bite just juices out. I mean, just look at this. That's insane. Between the two, I think I'm siding with this one. I'm a big fan of a hard sear and a nice crust on the steak, and this one got it for sure. And again, you can't compete with that charcoal flavor, that Fogo flavor. You know, this is a fire cooking show after all, so it's natural that I would prefer this one. Not to doubt this one at all. Unbelievable. I want to keep eating, but I know I'll probably die if I do. All right, one more. It's just so good. This is truly an experience. Oh. It's in the same category as, you know, foie gras or caviar or something. Definitely worth checking out. Not to mention, this is probably the cheapest pile of Wagyu you're gonna be able to find, because this is Costco Wagyu, 99 bucks a pound, as I mentioned. But if you were to get this amount of Wagyu cooked at a restaurant, I don't even know how much that would be. Oh, I wish Guga was here to help me eat all this. All right, I need to stop myself. Gloves are coming off. That's enough Wagyu for one person for one night. I'm gonna go find some friends real quick. One more. Actually, before I go, I think it's time for the official taste test. Oh, luckiest dog in the world. Oh man, chomping at the bit for that one. All right, if I give you any more, you're gonna get bubble guts. So you enjoy it. I gotta tell you folks, that really is a wild experience. Whenever I see Guga in his videos trying to explain how good Wagyu A5 is, he's always at a loss for words, and now I understand why. Because again, you can't think about this like a choice steak with just extra marbling. The fat is completely different, the flavor is different. It's a totally different world, and definitely worth checking out. And what I would do, if I were you, would be go get these steaks from Costco and cut them up into thirds and then vac seal them and freeze them. Because then you get 6 steaks, and those chunks will be more than enough to feed 1 to 2 people. And at that point, you're looking at like 30 bucks a piece as opposed to eating a whole steak like that, because that is an absurd amount of Wagyu A5. But that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you do give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking, because now we know the age-old question of, is Costco Wagyu A5 any good? Short answer, Big shout out to all the Patreon members. Thank you for supporting Team Chud and allowing me to keep making these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace. Oh, I'm gonna take a nap.